Hello, I'm Moop, and I'm gonna do a Photoshop tutorial on this VHS glitch effect, I suppose you could call it. This is really what it consists of. This is not, doesn't need to be there. I was asked to do this on Reddit, where I posted this on the Tame Impala sub, and so I'm doing a tutorial on it, and yeah, so let's get started. Make a new document. Any size you want is fine. I like to do things in 1920 times 1080. So let's see. I'm gonna get a picture to work with. I'm gonna use this one. It's similar to the one I used before, in the original, if you want to call it that. Let's put it down right here. Now, in this tutorial, I'm gonna assume kind of that you know a lot of photo, or I might not explain everything I'm doing really all too well, because I don't know, can't be bothered to go through some of the basic stuff, and I'll probably forget to go through a lot of stuff. So if I mess something up, I miss something, I'm just talking and I just make sure to tell me, right? The first thing, alright, so pick an image. I named it original just so I know what it is when I'm looking at it. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate it by hitting Ctrl J. I'm going to rename this to distort or something. We're going to need to, well, not yet, but we're going to need to rasterize it. But let's start by distorting it a little bit with wave. Now this is very extreme. I think number of generators 3 should look fine. Experiment with all the settings, but I'm gonna have a pretty high wavelength and amplitude. Right, I like to use wraparound, but repeat edge pixels works as well. But I think wraparound is more VHS-y in a sense. I'm gonna turn off vertical. I think horizontal is really all you're gonna see in a VHS. Maybe a little bit, but I don't know. And randomize until you find something that looks good to you. I like to keep like the face and whatever is in focus pretty somewhat intact when doing anything like this. So I think that looks pretty okay. Yeah, that's gonna work. This is a really subtle effect. You most likely it's not even noticed, but it's going to be there. Now you're gonna need to rasterize it. I hate rasterizing, but it's gonna need to happen. And this is now the next step is like the main part that you see here, the whole distortion thing, like noticeable misplacement of something. The smudge. You take the smudge tool, turn up strength to 100. Right, and I like to use a brush that looks like a paint splatter. I'll try and link something. If I don't think, maybe I'll find these exact ones I'm using. I have a lot of paint splatter downloaded, but I'll try and find something similar to put in the description for you to download. Oh shit! All right. Just kind of resize. Here's the cool thing, you just gonna click, hold shift and go along to the side and release. So it might go faster on your computer, it might go slower, depends on the computer. It's a lot of work for a computer to do, and I like to experiment with different patterns. This one has some holes in the middle. Sometimes they just don't seem to work. That one did. I'm gonna stick with that actually. I think that looks pretty good. Now I'm gonna be going back here a lot. We'll make sure what is happening next. Right, next is the play button, or the not button, but the text that's displayed in the corner. For this you're gonna need a font that you can download on the font. It's 100% free to use. VCR OSD mono regular, right? Just kind of play in all caps. You can add an underscore after, that will also fit the theme. You want to make it white. Just Control T and transform it to a size that fits you. Put it pretty high up in the corner, like maybe there. I should do it. Now we want to add a stroke to it, but the stroke you get on text layers like this, it just doesn't work. You get these round soft edges, and I don't like that. So we're gonna convert to shape, because when you have a shape, if we use this tool, the direct selection tool, you can select shapes. In this case, oh shit, we're choosing this one. Alright, you can add if we add a black stroke, change the alignment to outside, resize it to somewhere around like 1.2-ish. Yeah, I think that looks fine. And the next thing I like to do is I like to copy it, turn off the... Okay, that's weird. Alright, let's do that again. Control J. I do not know what is happening. Alright, well, we just have to do it on this one. Rasterize. I'm gonna rasterize it. Still hate doing that. And we're gonna blur it a little bit because I don't know if this is actually necessary. Oh shit. If this actually is gonna add much to the final effect, because it gets quite sharpened at one point. Just a little bit of blur, because VHS tends to be a bit blurry. Same goes for the image. If you feel, I don't know. Sometimes when I'm doing like retro effects, I like to blur it a little bit, but I don't think that will be necessary actually on this one. So you can probably skip blurring this text. Next thing I did was write a thing called chromatic aberration. So for this, we're gonna need to have a new layer that contains everything. Right. For that, you want to hold Control, Shift, Alt, and E, and now you have like copied everything under the layer, or you make a new layer on which you have like a flattened version of everything underneath it. So now when you double click way over here, you can select what channels are visible. I like to untick the red one, then you get like, well, I'll just show what happens. Right, well, you want to move it just a little bit, like 2 or 3 steps with the arrow keys when you're transforming it. It's most noticeable in the text. And now if you go back here, you can see what choosing different things gives you different results. Right, and if I only have red, then you see that the blue is on the left and the red is on the right. If I have everything but red, the red is on the left and blue is on the right. Anyway, so I don't know, experiment with that as well. Experiment with everything. Now I'm gonna have to resort back to this again. Alright, next up is sharpen. That really brings everything together a little bit. So we're gonna do Control Shift Alt E again. I'm gonna convert to smart object so I can come back to it, change things if I feel need to actually. Alright, sorry I got interrupted there. Oh right, I forgot. I've been completely forgetting to change my layer names. Sorry. It's a really good habit to have to name your layers. Now this is an effect called chromatic aberration. Yep. And this on this layer we're gonna do sharpen. So what you want to do is filter, sharpen, smart sharpen. Now this is I think the settings I have right now are pretty good actually. Let's see, the things, the parts where you most want to focus on are any details you want to preserve, like face and the text. I think the preset I have, or what I have it set to, is pretty good, but experiment with it, really. This is a good thing to experiment with as well. You get really different things. Anyway, so it's kind of that. Now it looks like you get that. I don't know what to say, but it looks good. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm gonna resort to this again. Right, now we get to the scan lines. For this I'm gonna need to show you how to make scan lines. So we're gonna be making a new pattern around the size of, I don't know, I think 20 times 20 should do fine. You want to choose a brush, or actually you want to use the pencil tool. Right, remove everything, and just I like to have this size of right, and use something like that. You can also do 1 pixel. It really doesn't matter that much. Yeah, just get these lines down on a pretty small piece of, well, a pretty small scale. You want to go to edit and let's see, define pattern. Actually, no, hold on, Control A. You want to select everything, edit. What is it? Define pattern. Okay, that doesn't look right. Let's see what happens if I move it like that. Right, if it looks like that, that's good. And then you just give it a name like scan lines or something and hit OK. Now since I've already done this, I don't need to do that. And when we're back here, I wanna click down here, select pattern, and make a new layer with your pattern. And you wanna scale it down. I like to start at 1 and scale it up until I think it looks good. I think 4 or 3, yeah, 4 or 3 in this document this size looks really good. I'm gonna go with, I don't know, let's go with 4 actually, it's more noticeable that way. But now this is very extreme, so I'm gonna change this to soft light. And you can lower the opacity of it if you think it's too strong, but I think it looks good like that. Right, next we have this kind of bulging effect. So we're gonna do Control Shift Alt E yet again, and we're gonna use the liquify filter, which you can also open with Control Shift and X. So, and here you choose this one called bloat. Right, make a big brush and put it approximately in the middle here. It's not super important as long as it's pretty close. Just gonna bloat it a little bit, something like that, and hit OK. And this is to simulate like the bulging of an older screen, kind of. Right, and this is bulge. Oh, what's this? Oh, it's not. Right. Right. And we really only have 2 steps left, right? Next is what's it called? Exposure. You want to add an adjustment layer called exposure. I always recommend having adjustments on here for you, but if you don't have it, you can go to Window, turn on adjustments. Otherwise, there's probably like a layer, new adjustment layer, or here, new adjustment layer and exposure. But I have everything here, right? I want to do that. Now I find that VHS is usually, their darks aren't very dark, so first I'm going to increase them, and then I'm going to increase the offset, so that's going to give the image a flatter look, and kind of. But now it's really dark, and so I'm going to increase the contrast so it looks really bright, like the color's way off. I feel like I don't know, this got really bright compared to this one, but that might just be because of the picture being very different. You can try to combat this with like hue and saturation, maybe brightness and contrast. I don't know, if you think it's too colorful, try changing it. The big part is because of this, it adds a lot of saturation to it, the scan lines, and the sharpening as well. The sharpen just kind of exaggerates everything a little bit. Now for the last step, we're gonna add something called, we're just gonna add some noise basically. So we're gonna make a new layer, Control Shift Alt and N, and we're gonna fill it with 50% gray, which is 7F, 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 and then you just fill it, and you'll notice that if you put it to overlay, it doesn't make any difference on what the picture looks like. So we can add a camera raw filter on this layer, and under the effects panel we can add grain. Alright, I'm gonna max it because you can lower the opacity later. I like to zoom into 100 so you see what the grain would look like in a 100% scale if you were to use it as a wallpaper, for example, which I'm doing. But I think that looks pretty good. Oh, that's 200%. Yeah, I think that's a good looking noise. Now you could be done here, but if we were to do another one of these layers, you can see it's really black and white, the noise. So I'm gonna duplicate it. A couple times with Control J and do this thing we did before, turn off a channel and then like rotate it rather than move it a little bit, just to rotate it. And let's take this one, no, something like that. Just and do this, and I think that would mean everything is a different color. Right now the color, now the noise has some color to it, but I think I might have rotated those two the same way. Yeah. So now we have this crazy noise pattern with some color to it. We can group it all and call it noise. Right, but now we have 3 times the noise of just one, so we can just lower the opacity until we're happy. I think that looks good. But yeah, you don't need to add the color at the end if you don't want to. But this, yeah, and this is basically the whole effect. You can play around with the exposure, you know, and increase the offset if you want to, or the exposure. But I was pretty happy where it was at. So anyway, that was that. If something is unclear, leave a comment below, and yeah, that was that. Thanks for watching.